Okay, today is August 24th, 2011, and if you just state your name and your age for us.
Shirley D. Schaefer, 76.
Good. And were you born in Elmore?
Yes, on Augusta Street.
Yeah, whereabouts?
At my grandfather's place at that time.
And who was your grandfather?
Christopher Isaac Damschroeder.
And he has quite a reputation in this town. You want to tell a little bit about your family history?
He married my grandmother, Alice Emma Swartz Damschroeder, and she died in 1939. She had a heart attack, and they brought her to my parents' home when we lived on the corner of Fremont and Ottawa Streets, and that's where she died. And he worked up in Michigan in the oil fields, and the family at times would go up to Jackson, Michigan, the Cascades, and meet him there for a weekend reunion. And it was always nice to see him. And the other time we ever see him would be at Christmas time when he came home.
Mm-hmm.
And we always enjoyed that. And we kids always got $1 from him for Christmas.
And where'd you go to spend that?
I don't even remember.
Hoarded it all? Is there any thing about your childhood that you'd like to share?
Oh, sure. I was born in November 11th, 1934. And we lived with my grandparents, and the gal down the street, Merlin Bothy, used to put me in a baby buggy and push me around. And my grandfather had a whippet. It was a type of automobile. Mm-hmm. And one day I got in that whippet. It had a rumble seat, and my mother was looking for me, couldn't find me. Well, I was inside the whippet, and I had fish hooks coming out of my mouth.
Oh my God.
Playing as normal children do. So she cut them off and took them out.
My gosh.
I didn't have any real problems with it. I didn't get any. I wasn't sick, so.
That's good, geez.
I must have been 3 or 4, somewhere in there. But that's what kids do, get places where they don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you remember what it was like going to school, where you went?
Yeah, I started first grade down at what was the old Harris-Elmore school, and Esther Beckman was our teacher. And we had a playhouse, and Valentine's Day we would exchange Valentines there with the rest of the class. And in 2nd grade I had Grace Myers, and there was one kid in the class that liked to get up and move around, mm-hmm. So she tied his leg to the desk.
Can't do that anymore.
No. And then in 3rd grade I had Maddie Heckman, and she always claimed that if she didn't get something across to me, that she didn't get it across. But she was a lot of good teacher. Mm-hmm. And later years I found out that she was engaged to be married to my dad's Uncle Scott, but that didn't come off because he was in World War I and he was killed in the Battle of Verdun. And but always enjoyed Maddie Heckman.
Mm-hmm. You said that you found some of their letters that they had corresponded together.
Yeah, and also she had, before he left for overseas, she had bought him a shaving mug set, which now is in the possession of the other Damschroeder lives over on Fremont Street. No, back of us. Can't think of his name. Anyhow, got to see that, so I didn't realize that they were, could have been relatives.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really neat.
Yeah. Calvi Damschroeder is where
Okay.
has the shaving mug set. And it's very interesting. It had the mug and the shaving cream and the razor that she had bought him before he went overseas.
Anybody interesting in high school?
Oh, we had a scattering of teachers,
Yeah.
and I got involved in chorus and things like that. Made honor roll.
Mm-hmm.
And if they'd had a track team, at that time the track team was done with, and I probably would have tried to go out to track.
Oh yeah, what did you like to do? Long distance sprint?
Oh, I might have tried hurdles.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And we always had, during lunchtime, during school hours, that you could play basketball. The teams played basketball, and I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
I liked to do that. I was in GAA, Girls Athletic Association. And we had some good, nice teachers. We had Jean Hying and Albina Contact.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that we always stayed a little bit away from was Dory Coleman.
Why is that?
Oh, she had a thing of her own. Her sister stole her husband to me. That didn't go down well. But,
It made her a bit sour.
yeah, and we were involved in plays that were presented to the kids. You know, the kids come in and we have a play, and I took some part in some of the plays, and it was always enjoyable to learn new parts. And some of the older ones that were ahead of us that we saw, and very interesting.
Do you remember any of the, I think we were talking earlier about some of the businesses that had come and gone when we were looking through
yeah.
that book.
Yeah, there was right next to where Red, White, and Brews, where they have their room where you can go in and sit. That used to be a Myers insurance agency. I can't think of what his first name is. And and then further down the street was the drugstore, which was run by the Gehrings, and there was always two windows or enclosed windows on each side before you walked in. Where now they have it just where the brick is. You know, they have the office area inside where you get waited on. But it was very interesting. And Wise had a shoe store. And next to that was Tank's Meat Market. And then there was a little shoe place next door.
More shoes.
Yeah. And across the street was there was a bowling alley at one time, just a 2-lane bowling alley, which was I think 2 doors from where the from the bank. And I think I only bowled in there maybe once or twice. But later on, after I graduated, of course, bowled when on the corner where it's now is the shirt place. So I did that. And but in high school, at Halloween time we'd have hay rides and things like that. We always got together at Christmas time. The class got together at somebody's home for a Christmas party, exchanged names. So we were fairly active.
Do you remember much about the homecomings?
Yeah, my best friend in high school, Mary Ann Zolman, now is her married name. She was elected the first homecoming queen.
Oh.
And I think Judy Damschroeder was the one just with her, but came in second. And we'd go to the football games, and of course, our first football game, we got beat, but we got to start anyhow. didn't have too many boys playing, but
No.
over the years, it did improve. We won some game. Of course, our basketball team didn't do too well, I think.
No. They started to get better, though. They won a lot of championships later on.
Yeah, because the one year that some of our classmates played, we didn't win a game.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And but at Christmas time, we might have a Christmas party at somebody's house
Mm-hmm.
and invite the teachers. And one of the best math teachers I had was Jean Hine, and Kathleen Sonicson was in charge of the girls that were going to be typists and that type of training. And and I liked subjects. I took French as a high school language.
Remember any?
Parlez-vous français, monsieur?
No.
Ah, comme ci, comme ça. In fact, then when I went to college, I decided to take Spanish. That was a disaster. First of all, I can't trill an R. And the guy that was teaching it said, I want to make it as difficult for you to learn this language as they did to make me learn English. So I thought, I don't need that. So I went back to French. I'm not going to deny, because I could not trill an R. It's just don't have the...
It's hard as a gift.
Yeah, it is. But, and the teacher I had for French, taught French. He went to school in France. And he was also in music. He was a very musically gifted. And, but we always had a good time. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed French.
Mm-hmm. Did you belong to any organizations in your adult life?
Oh yeah, I was, let's see, I went to work for Sun Oil Company, and I worked into, they had a, can't think what the name of the thing was. It wasn't a union, but they had sponsors, and we would put on programs. And I was in charge of one program that we had a water type program, and different individuals came and attended. And so, but I enjoyed that. And when we went on strike, I worked the strike and lived in. Our meals were given to us free. We'd walk across the lab, from the lab to the main office, and eat. And of course, we were paid pretty well. You know, you got paid because you worked 12 hours and you were off 12 hours. And we had and in fact, when I hired in at Sun, the individual who was the office manager at the lab, he retired so that I could be hired. And so then Lou Thomas, who was a very important individual in Toledo, and then became lab manager. And it had a good, learned a lot, worked a lot. And the fellow, I worked in the water lab. And that was handling good waters that were brought in to be tested for different problems and things like that. And but Norm was the head of that particular lab, and we always called him Stormin' Norman. And we always had, and there were times that things didn't go well, but you accepted them. And then we would do some stuff for the government, testing on certain products. That was always very interesting too. And then I was, later on I got my own office, and I was in charge of some products, benzene, toluene, xylene, and I would run tests and then publish for the lab what was discovered and how it reacted. And I also made a lab manual I was given the opportunity to go back to school for industrial hygiene. And I got paid for meals and mileage. And I worked up a lab manual at the request of the lab manager at that time, who was in Illinois. And I got a bonus for that.
Impressive.
So I enjoyed that.
Did you work at any other places?
I worked when after I graduated from high school, I started going to Capital University. And then the fellow that lived next door to me, Orman Kuhlman, I came home. I didn't like the school down there, so I came home, and I got a job down at Area Ordnance at that time. And there was an opening then that was at Fisk Brothers. So he contacted me and asked if I'd like to not have to write down there with somebody I didn't really know too well from Woodville. And so I did. And so I worked at Fisk probably 10, 11 years. And it was enjoyable. Then I got tired thought, I got to do something better than pushing a typewriter. So that's when I went back to college. And I thought, I should be able to handle it. And I thought first to go into Bowling Green, but that was too much of a distance. You know, I'd be driving in and then going down there. So I enrolled at the University of Toledo. And I got my degree in, I can't remember. But anyhow, then after I was working at Sun, the company said, get your master's in industrial hygiene, which I did. And so I went back to school for that. And that was very interesting. I worked in the College of Engineering. My instructor was Land Corps, and he was an industrial hygienist in training and degree. So that's what I did that.
Okay, we're continuing on with Shirley Schaefer. Let's see, we were talking about your jobs before. Did you have anything else to add to that before we move on?
No.
Not particularly? Okay. Let's go back into your personal life a little bit. When did you meet your husband?
I met him at a motel.
Ooh.
Well, the people that lived in back of us at the apartments, the Moody's, they were both from Kansas. And of course, I went out there one weekend, and that's where I met him. He was in from California on business, and just happened to meet him there, was introduced. And then over the years, we got together, and he's originally from Saline, Michigan. So that's where I met him. And we were married in '84. And so we're still hanging on. I wouldn't trade him. Right now he's got a bad back. He's hardly bent over. But anyhow, he graduated from the University of Michigan as an engineer, mechanical engineer. And so we've done a lot of traveling. He was a veteran of World War II. He graduated from high school in '43, and he went directly. He was called in service and served in France and Germany, and he was wounded with shrapnel. And it was funny. After we were married, we'd been to Europe about 8 times. And we went back to the little town of Dietfurt is where he was wounded. And the one he knew where his mind is very sharp. He knows exactly where he's been. anyhow, he was looking for his boot.
Did you find it?
No. But we have made a lot of friends over there, and we've been in the area where his foxholes were, and that was interesting to see how they dug them and filled them with evergreens. And one thing that he did, his feet, he made sure that he did get frostbite, and he would put on a clean pair of socks every night, and with the old ones he would put them inside his jacket so that they would dry. And there were so many of the others that didn't do that, and they wound up with trench foot. And but we've met a lot of nice people over there and have friends, and it's been good, enjoyable.
And you go see your family a lot too. You want to talk about that?
Well, Susan, I have a daughter, Susan, and I usually go there maybe in the spring and then later in the fall. And she's married to a Army guy. He is a colonel, and they have 3 children. Katie is 4, Abby is 8, and Nate is 12. And they live in Overland Park, Kansas. And they bought a house there. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
nice house.
Is it, yeah?
But it's not one of those cheap ones, you know. But when she went to college, we sent her down to Cincinnati. We told her we were going to send her far enough away from home that she couldn't come home weekends. But there, one of the Judy Wentz brother went down there, and he would sometimes come home on weekends, and she would ride home, and then they'd pick her up in the next morning and go down. But she did quite well down there. She became a nurse, and she was on the nursing honorary down there. She made the dean's list, and then after she graduated, her first assignment, how she finagled it, we don't know, but she was sent to Germany. She joined the Army at that time, and she was at Landstuhl, and she worked in the hospital right there. And she was very fortunate because a cousin of mine who was a doctor, they were living at Landstuhl. He was a doctor at the other area. And so he taught her how to drive, and she enjoyed it. So, and then after she was married, they wound up in out west, and so then they've been all over. They've been in Louisiana. I visited them there. Anywhere they go, I go. So. But and then she worked on her master's and made honoraries in that. She made 3 of them, and she did it all over the internet.
Wow!
So she's done all right. Very proud of her.
Were you married before?
No.
Too? Okay. Let's do that one. Have you been affiliated with any churches or anything in town?
I belong. I was born and then was baptized at Grace Lutheran. That's over on Maple Street. And then after I was later in life, I did serve as secretary of the church. And then when they built the new church out there, everybody transferred out there. And I wasn't quite as active because I was involved with things at Sun, and kept you busy, you know. And NMA, National Management Association, I belonged to that, and so it just kept you and stuff. So I'm still a member out there, and enjoy it.
It's a nice church.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Is there? You've been on the library board quite a long time. About how long?
18 years.
Wow.
That's an interesting story. When Pete Willett worked at Sun with me, and of course he was going to retire, so he talked me into becoming a member of the board. So when it came time that Grace resigned, and we needed to look for a new library director, I was on the group that interviewed Georgie Huizenga. And so that's been 18 years ago. So I've been a board member for 18 years, and I hope to finish up this year in December. And
it was a good run.
that's a good one, yeah.
Is there any interesting people in Elmore that you met over the years? Any that have affected your life? Maybe some friends or just people you admired?
Yeah, I worked for Dick Myers, right? He and Sabrowski and Myers were the funeral home directors. And when I was a freshman, my mother worked for Summers's down here, and Faith was looking for somebody to keep Dickie after school. So I got the job. So I worked there for maybe all through high school, so maybe close to 5-6 years, and I enjoyed that. I learned a lot of things, and her husband said that she learned a lot of things from me too. But it was a good experience. You know, I'd work on after school if she needed me, and then these Saturdays would be cleaning and things like that. But I enjoyed it. And as Dick said, she learned a lot of things from me, and I learned a lot of things from her. So it was Faith was nice to work with.
Any strange people in town?
Oh, right now there's so many people in town that I don't know.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You know, you see people. I think they've come from Toledo just to get away from the big town to a little town. And of course, I lived in Height when I was going to school, grade school and things like that. We could come home for lunch, and my dad worked at the multiplex, and so we'd walk home, and then you could walk back to school. It wasn't that far, and we lived right across from Trinity Church on the corner. In fact, we had moved into the wrong house to begin with. But anyhow, so we had a lot of good times. We had kids in the neighborhood that we played with, and things like that. So we had a good childhood. The only time I ever got upset was that I don't know how it happened, but anyhow, I dropped a dozen eggs on the sidewalk. I thought sure I was going to be punished severely, but it wasn't. It just, they didn't say anything too bad or any real great punishment, so it wasn't as bad as I figured it was going to be.
No beatings this time?
No, right.
The one question that we've been asking everybody is, what were you doing during the blizzard of '78?
We were released from work, and we lived out in the country at the time. And no, was that out? Did we live in the country or out down here? No, I think it was down here because the folks were keeping the kid, Susan, and I was still working, could get into work. I rode in with Pete Willett with his Jeep. I was able to drive back and forth with him, which was very nice. And we just, in fact, then we worked. We had worked a short strike period either before or after that, and I bought for the folks a new television set for their having taken care of Susan for the time that I was locked in. So But the snow was piled almost up to the wires on the telephone poles. And it was mostly that the Army had come out and piled it up. But it wasn't as bad as you might have thought, that you were still able to get around and didn't have much problems. But you just stayed off the roads.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we end?
No.
No?
I've enjoyed being on the library board and keeping the minutes. I work them out ahead of time once I get the stuff that. So sometimes I goof off or goof one of the things that's said, but that works out real well. We just correct them, and I've enjoyed it.
I'm sure they enjoyed you having it too. And so thanks for interviewing with us today. We really enjoyed it. We learned a lot. And we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.